The book of Hosea. Introduction. Hosea, a prophet from the northern kingdom, preached in his homeland, which he addressed as Israel, Jacob, or frequently Ephraim. Hosea began his mission in a period of prosperity, the last years of Jeroboam II, 783-743 BC. This was followed by a period of eternal instability with intrigues at the royal court leading to the assassination of several kings. Hosea witnessed the revival of Assyria, the Assyro-Ephraimite war, and the numerous treaties and the Israelite kings made with Egypt and Assyria to survive. Hosea's long ministry, ca. 750 to 725, seems to have ended before the capture of Samaria in 722/721. The only information the text provides us about the life of Hosea concerns his marriage, even if we cannot reconstruct what happened exactly. The text as it now stands speaks of three moments in the relationship. First, love, separation, reunion. This marriage is a symbol of the covenant between the Almighty God and Israel. Hosea speaks about the first, love, short period of Israel loyalty in the desert, which was then followed by a long history of unfaithfulness lasting until his day. Hosea accuses Israel of three crimes in particular. Instead of putting their trust in the Almighty God alone, the people break covenant by counting on their own military strength and by making treaties with foreign powers, Assyria and Egypt, and running after Baal, the gods of fertility, which is a demon, goat demon. Israel thus forgets that the Almighty God is its strength, its covenant partner, and giver of fertility. This unfaithful behavior will lead to Israel's destruction by Assyria, but God's love will have the last word. The back and forth movement from doom to salvation is typical of the book of Hosea. Hosea begins the Old Testament tradition of describing the relation between the Almighty God and Israel in terms of marriage, e.g. Jeremiah 3:1, Ezekiel 16:23, Isaiah 50:1. And the New Testament uses the marriage imagery to describe the union between the Messiah and the church, e.g. MK, which is Mark 2:19-20, Ephesians 5:25. The Hebrew of the book of Hosea is challenging to translate possibility because the text is corrupt or because it is written in a non-standard dialect of Hebrew. As a result, the English translations of the book sometimes offer very different readings of the same passage. The book, which opens with a superscription 1:1 and ends with the final challenge 14:10, is divided into two major parts. 1, the prophet's marriage and its symbolism, 1, 2, 3, 5. 2, Israel's guilt, punishment, and restoration, 4, 1-14-9. And this is Hosea chapter 1. The word of the Almighty God that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, in the days of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel. 1, the prophet's marriage and its symbolism. Marriage of Hosea and Gomer. When the Almighty God began to speak with Hosea, the Almighty God said to Hosea, "Go get yourself a woman of prostitution and children of prostitution, for the land prostitutes itself, turning away from the Almighty God." Oh, so they're trying to call me names, but they prostitute themselves with other gods, idols. So he went and took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Almighty God said to him, give him the name Jezreel, for in a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the bloodshed at Jezreel, and bring to an end the kingdom of the house of Israel. On that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. She conceived again and bore a daughter, and the Almighty God said to him, give her the name Not Pitied, for I will no longer feel pity for the house of Israel, rather I will utterly abhor. Yet for the house of Judah I will feel pity. I will save them by the Almighty their God, and I will not save them by bow or sword, by warfare, by horses or horsemen. And after she weaned Not Pity, she conceived and bore a son. Then the Almighty God said, give him the name Not My People, for you are not my people, and I am not, and then I am for you. The section begins with Hosea's marriage to Gomer, which symbolizes Israel's relationship to God. Hence the symbolic names of Hosea's children and their later renaming. The prophet foresees God's punishment for the unfaithful covenant partner, but knows that God's last word is always hope. The superscription is from a Judean editor who lists the kings of Judah in the south first. Even though Hosea preached in the northern kingdom of Israel a woman of prostitution, this does not necessarily mean that Gomer was a prostitute when Hosea married her. The verse describes the event in its final consequence. Prostitution here may refer to Gomer's participation in the worship of other gods. So while they're talking about the way I dress, it's like a harlot, but if you have abandoned the sovereign creator of the universe, our God, to worship that Baal, the goat demon with the horns, you are prostituting yourself. If you worship any other gods or idols of fertility and forget the sovereign creator, you are prostituting yourself. Why you so busy calling me a harlot? But you abandon God. What is it? For the land prostitutes itself, turning away from the Almighty God, worshiping Baal, the goat demon, running after the Baals, the gods of fertility. Israel thus forgets the Almighty God, its strength, its covenant partner and giver of fertility. Okay, being unfaithful to God, the Creator. Check yourself before you start pointing your fingers. There's always 3 pointing back at you.